All right, I know you all know what H2O is. You know H2O is water. You've heard it all the time. But why does H have a little 2 next to it? Why doesn't oxygen? What does that 2 mean? Well, what H2O actually looks like as a molecule is like this. So notice there's 2 atoms of hydrogen, hence the 2, and 1 atom of oxygen. So that's where H2O comes from. There's only 1 atom of oxygen. So why doesn't O have a 1 next to it? Well, because it's kind of like just a given. If there's no number next to it, we know there's only 1 atom of that element. So today, you are going to learn how to count atoms from a formula. Just looking at a formula, knowing how many atoms there are. So for H, there's 1, 2. For O, there's 1. So in total, we have 3. That's what you're going to be doing today. So let's look at your notes together. We're going to start on the left side of the notes. And just in case you didn't know, the easiest way to zoom in is click the magnifying glass, and then you can make a square over the area that you want to zoom in on. So today's notes are called counting atoms. We are counting atoms in a chemical formula. So your first example is H2O, like we just talked about. The H is the symbol for hydrogen, the O is the symbol for oxygen. This little number 2 is called a subscript. Say subscript. So think sub, like submarine means below, so the number is down below. A subscript is awesome because it tells you how many of that element you have. So it's like giving you the answers. This little 2 tells you there's 2 atoms of hydrogen. So we like subscripts. Remember, H2O didn't have a subscript next to O. So if there's no subscript, you're going to write in a 1. That's on you. You write in a 1. Trust me, don't skip it. Yes, you need to do it. It's going to make sure you don't make any careless mistakes. So no subscript means there's only 1. It's like a given, but you're going to write it in. This chart down here is called an EA chart. Like EA Sports, it's in the game. EA chart, it's in the name. Because all of your answers, this is a little cheesy, all of your answers are in the name of the chemical formula or chemical equation. So, let me explain what that EA chart is real quick. Although we're about to do that a lot. The E stands for elements. The A stands for atoms. So on the side with the E, you put the elements in the formula. So H and O. On the side with the A, you put the number of atoms. So for H, we have 2 atoms. For O, we have 1 atom. So an EA chart is a chart where you put the elements and the atoms. Let's look at these 2 examples. So I'm starting on this side. For CH4, notice there is no subscript for carbon. So what do we have to do? We have to give carbon a subscript. So we give carbon a 1. Ooh, that was a good one. All right, so now I'm gonna make my EA chart. So if I'm doing this on paper, which you're gonna wanna do this on paper, you are gonna want to write this. You're going to just draw like a T chart basically, and put E and A. And that's how you make an EA chart on paper, that easy. On the E side, you list your elements. We have carbon, so C. We have hydrogen, so H. On the A side, you list the number of atoms. For carbon, we gave carbon a 1, so there's only 1. For hydrogen, it has a subscript of 4. Remember, subscript means little number, so there's 4 atoms of hydrogen. Underneath the EA chart, you always put the total number of atoms. So 1 plus 4 gives us 5 total. There's 1 atom of carbon, there's 4 atoms of hydrogens. All together, there's 5. All right, ooh, let's look at this side. There's a whole lot going on this side. So yes, we have a bit more going on this side, but that's okay. No big deal. Let's go through our same step. First thing you do is you look at the equation and you see, do I need any ones? Do I need to add ones? AL has a subscript, I'm gonna leave it alone. S doesn't have a subscript, that circle is there just to help you. So we're gonna add a 1. O has a subscript, I'm gonna leave it alone. But then I see these parentheses, and what is going on with these parentheses? So let's look. We have parentheses, and outside of our parentheses, there's a 3. Okay, so let's think in math class. If you have something outside of the parentheses, you have to distribute it to what's inside of the parentheses. Distribute means multiply to what's inside of the parentheses. Not everything, just what's inside. So we are going to distribute or multiply by 3 for what's inside of the parentheses. So this arrow is there to show you, and you will draw the arrows on your paper. 3 distributed to 1, and 3 distributed to 4. That means you're gonna multiply. So you're gonna do 3 times 1, 3 times 4. Do we distribute the 3 to the AL, to the 2? No, it's not in the parentheses. If it's not in the parentheses, then it's good, leave it alone. So EA chart, I always look for ones first, draw my arrows, and then I make my EA chart. We have 3 elements. I know this because there are 3 capital letters. Every element begins with a capital letter. So AL is 1, S is another, O is another. Every element begins with a capital letter. AL goes together because the L is lowercase. You can find your elements on the periodic table, so if you're confused, just check. So how many atoms of AL do we have? Well, they gave us the answer. It's in the name, 2. So 2 atoms of AL. For S, for sulfur, we gotta do a little more work. Because remember, we have this arrow here telling us we have to distribute. So we put 1 times 3 is 3. Easy peasy. For O, we have a 4, but we have to distribute. That's why we have this arrow. So this 3 is getting multiplied by the 4. It's distributing. So 4 times 3 gives us 12. So, okay, if you're confused, this 3 out here got distributed to the numbers inside the parentheses. Distributed means multiplied. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. Now we need to add 2 plus 3 plus 12. That would give us a total of 17, a total of 17. All right, so down here, we have your rules. So every time you are counting atoms, you need an EA chart. You need to list the elements in the EA chart. You need to count the number of atoms using the subscripts. Remember, I said before you draw an EA chart, you go through and you put your ones. If there's any element that doesn't have a subscript, you put the ones, you draw the arrows if there are parentheses. You only have to draw arrows if there are parentheses, and I'll review that in just a second. So, add your ones, add your arrows, draw your EA chart, list the elements, count the atoms, don't forget to multiply if there's parentheses, and then put your total. Not too bad. On the right side of your notes, you have some practice. I'm going to do the top 2 practice with you, and you're going to do the bottom 2 practice on your own. It's gonna let me, okay, it's not gonna let me zoom out any more than this. All right, no problem. You need to also get used to practicing these on paper. That would be my suggestion, because when I do this, I want to write it on paper so that I can see it better, I guess. That's my preference. I think it's easiest when you practice on paper as well. Some things are just better with paper and pencil. All right, perfect. So let's do this example first. Remember, first thing, do we need to add any ones? CL, that's 1 capital letter, so that's 1 element. The 2 goes with Cl. O, it doesn't have a subscript, so we gotta give it a subscript. Remember, subscript is a little number. It's like a little kid just hanging on to its mom's leg. It's hanging on, so it goes with whatever it's hanging on to. All right, we don't have any parentheses, so we're not gonna draw any arrows. So I make my EA chart. Remember, if you were doing this on paper, you just draw a T chart, put EA. Let's list our elements. We have 1, 2 capital letters, so we have 2 elements, Cl and O. Right, how many atoms of Cl do we have? Well, it has a subscript. It tells us the answer. Remember, it's in the name. So 2 atoms of Cl. How many atoms of oxygen? It didn't have a subscript. We gave it a 1, so it just has 1 atom of oxygen. So we have 2 elements total, and we have 2 plus 1 is 3 atoms total. This chemical formula is made of 2 elements and 3 atoms. Okay, let's do another one. It's gonna be a little bit trickier. All right, we're looking at this example on this side. So this one's a little bit trickier because we have parentheses. So let's check first. Do we need to add any 1s? Yes, we do. We need to put a 1 next to P because it didn't have a subscript. Do we need to add arrows? Yes, we do. If we have parentheses, we need to add arrows. Remember, the arrows only go to what's inside the parentheses. So I'm not drawing an arrow from 2 all the way to 3, all the way to SR, because that's not inside the parentheses, so leave it alone, let it be. But we are gonna draw an arrow from 2 to 1. It's inside the parentheses, we need to distribute, and from the 2 to the 4. Inside of the parentheses, we need to distribute. So when you see that arrow, it's like a reminder that you're gonna need to multiply. You can draw an X next to it if that makes you happy, if that helps you remember. You don't have to. To me, that's just a reminder, okay, I need to multiply. I can't just write down 1. All right, let's list our elements. We have 1, 2, 3 capital letters. So we have 3 elements, 3 different elements. How many atoms of SR do we have? It's right there for us. 3 atoms of SR because it has a subscript 3. How many atoms of P? Okay, for phosphorus, for P, we need to do a little more work. We have to distribute. So we're gonna do 1 times 2 gives us 2. For oxygen, we need to do a little more work. We have to distribute. So 4 times 2 gives us 8. So total elements, 1, 2, 3. Total atoms, we need to add 3 plus 2 plus 8. And you can always use a calculator. You'll have calculators on your Chromebooks. You might have a calculator at home. You have one on your phone. There's one on the internet. You can use a calculator, but that would give us 13. And that is how you count atoms. The only other thing that I want to show y'all is just to make sure we're 100% clear. If you were doing this on paper, here's your chemical formula. Underneath the chemical formula or next to the chemical formula or wherever, you just, bam, that's a beautiful EA chart. That's all, when I say draw your EA chart, that's all I mean. In your notes, it was already there for you. It looked a little fancy, but on paper, it's just like this. Remember, the E stands for elements. The A stands for atoms. But we know you don't want to write the whole word, so just write EA. Remember, EA chart, it's in the name.